And we continue at 2:07 in the afternoon. Talk Radio 790 KABC, the John Phillips Show. Broadcasting live from the Morongo Casino Resort and Spa Living Room Studios. Mr. Randy Wings, the sports desk in Culver City.
John, the mayor of San Francisco, London Breed, was asked by reporters if they could clean up the city for Dreamforce, why can't they do it every single day? She responded with a bucket full of cliches.
Part of what I am doing is not pointing the finger at anyone, but rolling up my sleeves to take full responsibility and do everything we can.
And that's at the end of the day.
I got to save an end of the day from her. I need to get that. I don't think I have that ready to go, but she does say that almost as much. Oh, no, I do have one. Excuse me. I've already taken care of this.
At the end of the day.
Who says it more, her or Adam Schiff?
Oh, I think Adam Schiff absolutely says it more.
At the end of the day.
Didn't he use that in a song at one point?
Well, I don't know if you know this, but Adam Schiff, because he represents parts of Hollywood, he's always had an interest in the arts. And at one point, he tried out for this recent production of Les Mis at the Pantages Theater.
At the end of the day. At the end of the day. At the end of the day.
Now, that is commitment to a cliche. You've taken it all the way to Broadway.
At the end of the day.
Although Rob Bonta, the Attorney General of California, he still sits on top of the pyramid.
This is the gold standard of buckets full of cliches.
Every type of leadership is about meeting the moment and rising to the occasion, and this is what's required. And so we're stepping up and getting it done.
You know what, though? For a guy with an IQ of an ice cube in August, he's gone pretty far.
He's going to run for governor.
800-222-KABC is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. It's our pleasure to welcome our next guest to the program. You can find her online at AnnCoulter.com, where she links to her Substack, which is always something that's worth watching. And, of course, her columns are great, and they come out weekly. You can read them there. You can also follow her on Twitter at Ann Coulter. Ann Coulter, welcome.
Good to talk to you, John Phillips.
Likewise. Thank you so much for stopping by. I've been looking forward to asking you this question all day because New York City, the city where you spend a lot of time and you are an evangelist for all things New York City, is right now the epicenter of the immigration debate. And there's something that's happening there that I think is very important. And that is you have a high-profile Democrat in the mayor of New York City, Eric Adams, who is out there on TV on virtually a daily basis making the same arguments that you have been making for a while and other advocates for border security have been making for a while. But this time, it's coming from a high-profile Democrat. And I think that's important for a lot of reasons. But first and foremost, I don't think we can get any realistic form of border security that works, that would make someone like you happy or make someone like me happy, unless and until there are elements in both political parties that advocate for border security. Because in the Republican Party, you can't just assume that an elected official will be in favor of border security, because many of them are Wall Street Journal types who do not believe in border security. And if you have 100% of the Democratic Party against border security, you may have a population that wants it. You may have voters who want it, but you'll never get a majority in Congress that supports it. And I think what's unique about what's going on right now in New York City is that the number of illegals who are showing up there and needing services is so high that it's resulting in budget cuts to various city departments. And when you're talking budget cuts to city departments in a city like New York City, what you're talking about is cutting the services that public employee unions provide. And whenever Democrats are put in the position of saying no to public employee unions, it puts them in a very vulnerable place. Public employee unions we think of as being ideological, and in many cases they are. But on the left side of the aisle, they're the most rational actors that exist. They want more tax dollars and more spending so they have more members and the unions get more money. The minute you start taking that away from them is the minute their hair on fire's nuts. And their hair on fire nuts right now over what's going on in New York City. And if you can get high-profile Democrats and public employee unions demanding border security, I think the political dynamic has changed. Your thoughts?
I think it will make it a little more complicated than it needs to be. I mean, the public employees, it's not just them. In fact, their pensions are protected. They can't be touched. It's every single service. And what you're seeing in New York and a little bit in Chicago and Boston as well is the old adage that people are always conservative in their own areas of expertise. That's why California passed Proposition 187, what was that, 30 years ago, which, by the way, totally helps Republicans. I have a Substack post on that. The media will not stop lying about that. And now, all these sanctimonious sanctuary cities, now they get a look at what they were talking about. And the city is collapsing, as Mayor Eric Adams has said. If this keeps up, it will destroy the city. This is just 100,000 illegals that have arrived recently. Only 10,000 sent by Governor Abbott from Texas, by the way. The rest are just coming here. 100,000. Do you remember when Los Angeles had a day without immigrants? They don't throw in illegal, but a day without immigrants. And the pictures of Los Angeles and the protests, there were 4 million of them there. You get 100,000 in New York City, a much bigger city, and it absolutely can't be handled. It isn't just public sector unions, where I usually bike. Randall's Island, went over there this weekend to see all the migrant shelters. Well, that's over. Can't bike there anymore. They're streaming throughout Central Park. They're all over the sidewalks. And I don't think, the big solution from the Democrats is let them work. I'm not sure that's a great idea for the Democrats. Low-wage workers are already struggling to make it with gas prices, with food prices. You're going to throw in massive competition only to them? How about we bring in 5 million new Hollywood writers and dump them on California? How about we bring in 2 million new hedge fund managers and dump them on Wall Street? You like that? Like that, fancy liberals? And you say border security, no such thing. This is drones on the border, and we'll have technology and cameras. No, there's one thing that works. Ask Israel, a wall. It's the only thing that works. What happened was, and yes, there used to be probably almost as many Democrats. Certainly Democrats gave lip service to caring about the border. And then Trump came along and, sorry, this was always a risk, that he would end up hurting the issues he ran on and then did nothing about. And that's what happened when he ran. I don't know if I'm sure you remember this. I don't know if your listeners remember this. No, Obama pretended to be for border security. Hillary pretended to be for it. I think Obama actually did as much to build border fences as Trump did, which wasn't very much. And so all of this nonsense about the various other things you can do to stop illegal immigration. No, there's one thing. And anyone who is against a wall wants this to continue, wants to change our country, wants to turn our country into the homeless shelter for the world. Send us all your losers and criminals and utterly unemployable so we can hook them up with our welfare programs right away. And the entire world is taking advantage of it. It is far more than the Venezuelans, by the way. We're getting an enormous number of Africans, apparently particularly from Senegal. It is just every country in the world is sending their most dysfunctional people.
How do you think the national Democrats are going to handle Eric Adams? Because he's out there on a daily basis turning their narrative upside down. And we're not just going into an election year, but we're going into a presidential year. And that's not good for them.
Well, luckily, Democrats really don't have to do much, as they never have to do much, because what's the other party again? Oh, yeah, the Republican Party. They have no idea that this is an issue. They have no idea that this is popular. Listening to them talk about what they want to impeach Biden for, corruption? Are you kidding me? Oh, my gosh, a politician is corrupt. Let's look at his bank accounts. No, impeach Biden for violating written statutory federal law. A federal judge just found a few months ago, expressly, chapter and verse, went through how the Biden administration is absolutely 100% directly in opposition to written law. Written law. Anyone who presents himself at a port of entry seeking asylum shall be detained. You can look it up in the law, or, oh my gosh, here's a federal judge ruling this, shall be detained. Not may be detained, not we have alternatives to detention, but shall be detained. You would think Democrats as well as Republicans, for Pete's sake, you guys write the laws. You have an executive branch doing the opposite of the law. You banged out negotiating Republicans, Democrats, decade after decade. You get Republican presidents to sign the law. You get Democrat presidents to sign the law. There it is. We have our federal law. And it's just being openly defied by the Biden administration. And what are the Republicans doing, John Phillips? Nothing. Nothing. They do not consider impeaching Biden for the border. They do not consider shutting down the government for the border. I tweeted back to, and look, I like the guy. He's better than most of them. But Representative Chip Roy tweeted today that, I don't know, something about how they have to shut down the government or whatever to demand, we were elected to get something done. And they have to do it to demand border security. Again, not border security. We need a border wall, but I'll let that one slide. Also, the weaponization of DOJ and FBI, and also excess spending, and also no morons. You want to get 80% of the country on your side? Do it exclusively on the border. Oh my gosh, Republicans are stupid. We can't work through these people anymore.
Well, everything's got to be a combo platter, because I don't know if you saw this, but after the first debate, when Ron DeSantis went out there and I thought did a pretty good job in that debate, the criticism that came at him from a lot of the people on this radio station, from the Daily Wire, that crowd, they were furious with him for not bringing up transgenders more often. And I thought to myself, okay, if that's what you're going to go after him on, because he didn't hijack a question that wasn't about transgenders, make it about
moronic.
Transgenders, then you don't understand what impacts most people's lives on a daily basis.
Yep, absolutely right. And by the way, transgenderism or transgenders, it's a winning issue for Republicans, which is, I was just thinking about this. Oh my gosh, the donors are stupid. I mean, you almost can't blame the crap for brains Republicans when their mega donors are telling them just consistently to do the exact opposite of what they should be doing. And so, there's another round of press for one of DeSantis' mega donors. Ken Griffin, who actually seems to be a really great guy in many ways. Allegedly, I don't know why this keeps being news. He said this 6 months ago. He's staying on the sidelines. He's waiting for things to shake out. I'm not really surprised by that. I still think the nominee is going to be DeSantis, but the fact that I have about a half dozen stake bets on that with people I consider smart politicos suggests to me that the race is up in the air. So I'm not surprised that billionaires want to wait and see, okay, who's
Well, you better join that club over at Ruth's Chris where you get points per dinner.
That's a good
frequent
idea.
flyer program.
But anyway, the claim is today, 6 months ago he said he's going to stay on the sidelines. Fine, no big deal. But today, the news, or maybe yesterday, the news has been going around that he said it's because DeSantis picked a fight with Disney. And why is he doing this? And I spend time in Florida as well, have run into a lot of the mega donors, billionaires down in the same town. And they've said the same thing to me, which is just utterly baffling to me. Number one, the fight is over. DeSantis won. Yes, Disney continues to sue DeSantis, and yes, Disney will continue to lose. Number two, what is that fight about? I mean, besides corporate welfare, which I guess the billionaires think, they might notice the carried interest loophole if they get on to corporate welfare. Okay, but Corporate welfare, not popular with voters. You know what's really not popular with voters? Teaching kindergartners about transgenders, and that's what the Disney fight is about. So what on earth are the donors thinking? Oh, no, that's going to hurt you at the polls. Now, I'm not saying that you should maneuver a debate. In fact, I interviewed DeSantis on my Substack a week before the debate. I considered it debate prep for our miracle governor. And I told him they're not going to ask about your strongest issues are COVID. Unless the president of Sweden is running next year for president, you win on COVID. You did everything right. Everyone screamed and yelled, and end of the year. DeSantis was right. Everyone else, including Trump, was wrong. Number two, crime during the Black Lives Matter protests. Oh, boy, but Florida was perfectly safe. Passed a bunch of laws. They already have the Stand Your Ground law. That was extended to businesses. Someone starts looting your business, you can shoot to kill. Number three, and other, anti-riot laws were pushed through, so no problems with crime in Florida. And number three, and most important, his immigration proposals. It's basically everything Trump promised but didn't do, and the fun thing is, this is a politician who actually knows what the F he's talking about. So he cites the 14th Amendment. He understands the 14th Amendment when he says anchor babies have to go. He talks about a wall, and what does he say when he talks about a wall? It works in Israel. It works in China. It's going to work here. He talks about Israel's wall, which is very important. And he pushed through an E-Verify in Florida. Those are his issues. So I told him they'll be asking you about global warming before any of those issues come up, definitely before immigration. And I said, no matter what the question is, you bring it back to crime, immigration, or COVID. No matter what the question, you crush on that. I mean, okay, transgender, it's an issue, but it's a little like inflation. You don't really need to talk about it. The voters are on our side. Don't worry, Democrats will talk about it. But it isn't something that separates the mice from the men the way immigration does. I am pretty sure, I think I can say without fear of contradiction, that every Republican running for president, in fact, I would say every elected Republican in the country is against teaching little kids about transgenders or giving, poisoning them and mutilating them without their parents' consent. So how does that distinguish one Republican candidate from another? But you know what does? What you're going to do about crime, what you're going to do about immigration, and oh my gosh, does COVID separate the mice from the men?
Okay, let's shift gears here for a second, because the big story over the weekend was Colorado Congresswoman Lauren Boebert, who apparently went to a play in Denver dressed like Jessica Rabbit with some date that she found, who owns a bar in Aspen. And they were
not in Aspen.
Where was it?
Class her up. It's not in Aspen. It's some dirtbag town outside of Aspen. I'm sorry. The town is probably lovely. He's a dirtbag. She's a dirtbag. Go ahead.
Okay, so according to the initial reports, she was vaping in the theater. She was seated next to a pregnant woman. The pregnant woman asked her to stop. She got nasty with the pregnant woman. Then he was groping her breasts during the play. She was groping his crotch. She was apparently also taking pictures during the play, which you're not supposed to do, and singing along very loudly. People asked her to stop. She said no. They kicked her out. I guess the docents
She said, do you know who I am? Don't forget that.
Right. And then as they were escorting her out, she was flipping them off. When asked about it,
finger to these hardworking employees at a theater.
And then denied all of it until the video was presented, and then said she's going through a difficult divorce, so give her a little time to deal with it.
She's absolute white trash. Republicans cannot get rid of her fast enough. If they want to play even Steven and, I don't know, expel somebody on the Democrat side, throw in Lauren Boebert. This is absolutely appalling, disgusting. How the Republican Party ended up with this white trash hoe is beyond me. And, I looked up her district. Yeah, it includes Vail and Aspen, and then the rest of it is very, very conservative. Those, kind of liberal towns, though Vail isn't as liberal as Aspen. They can't find somebody in that district to run for office. For Pete's sake, I'm going to move to Aspen and run against her. If this is, all you guys expect from a representative, it's absolutely embarrassing. Every Republican should be denouncing her and moving to get rid of her. She's a total hoe. And a liar, and vicious to working class people. When she's, I mean, the poor woman who's pregnant sitting behind her, they weren't in some fancy theater in Aspen. Like I say, this is some small town, and she's being nasty to the other patrons. These are just nice. They're probably her voters, and then gives the finger to the employees on the way out. And oh my gosh, does he have full cupping of her breasts? This wasn't a gentle little, brushed against him. It's whorish behavior.
I'll tell you, I wish this would have happened at a Chris Angel concert. I went to a Chris Angel concert one time in Las Vegas, The Magician. And magicians have very strict rules. You cannot record the show, because if you record the show, you can slow it down and you can figure out the tricks. And if you figure out the tricks, the act is over. They have to do something else. They work very hard on that act.
Same thing with telling jokes.
That's right. So there are signs literally everywhere you turn. And this woman was recording the entire thing. And he spotted her recording it from the stage. And he made a remark during the show, hey, please, no recording. We have signs all over the theater. Please don't do that. And then later on, he goes, I see someone in the audience that is ignoring me. They're recording. Stop doing it. And then the third time, he literally stopped the show. He put the house lights on, and he didn't talk to her. He talked to her husband. And he said, sir, this is how this is going to go. Your wife has been asked multiple times to not record the show. She is still recording me. She's done nothing to modify her behavior. Either you are going to take her hand and leave the theater, or I'm going to personally come down there and kick her out. That will be far more embarrassing for you and her to have me personally kick her out than to take her out right now. And you should have seen the guy. It was like Fred Flintstone just running to the door with the wife.
Good for him.
It was great.
I mean, good for the performer. Good for the magician. He's absolutely right. It's outrageous behavior. It's outrageous.
And Coulter.
And utterly embarrassing. We're Republicans. Let Democrats be the embarrassing ones.
You can read her online at AnnCoulter.com and follow her on Twitter at Ann Coulter. Ann, thanks so much for stopping by. Always a pleasure.
Good to talk to you, John Phillips. Goodbye.
Thanks. And I agree. She is a whore. You don't do that. Don't grope someone in a theater. Don't grab their genitals. Don't lie about it. And if you smoke during a show when you're not supposed to be smoking in a theater, you're trash. If you want to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, you're still answering the emails from people who want to know George Gascon's nickname.
I think we're at like 125 now. I have never hit copy and paste more times in my life. This is like a full-time job, letting people know what the nickname is for George Gascon that you heard at the Gelson's event that we can't say on the air.
But it's great.
It's a good one.
Quite frankly.
And if you want to go back and listen to Friday's show from Gelson's because you missed it for some reason, Randy, that's easy to do.
That's right. I posted it right before the show started today. Go to KABC.com, click on podcasts, go to the Apple Podcasts app, iHeart, Spotify, search for The John Phillips Show, hit subscribe. You can download all the episodes. You can search for The John Phillips Show on YouTube as well. All 3 hours are posted. The first hour, we made fun of Oakland. The second hour with Alex and Marla. The third hour with Gloria and Soledad. And, hey, huge shout-out. Alex and Marla gave us a shout-out on the TV on Friday.
That's right. It was so kind of them to do that.
It was pretty cool. I haven't had my name uttered on television before.
I wasn't expecting this Monday to be as busy as it is, but my goodness, it's like, well, Gavin Newsom would say it's weather whiplash.
Weather whiplash.
I'm getting Gavin whiplash. I just cut up one Gavin interview, and then he's going to go on with Dana Bash at 5 o'clock.
Now, you made an interesting comment during the break. You said Gavin Newsom is changing his hair color.
So I just saw a clip they put up on CNN. I watched Gavin over the weekend in New York at the Climate Week thing, and Gavin had his typical hair where it's a little graying. But at least in the clip they showed of Dana Bash interviewing Gavin Newsom, it looks like he's now going full gray, like he wants to look like Bill Clinton.
Or the dad on The Nanny.
There you go.
Maybe if he looks like the dad on The Nanny, he can walk the picket line with After SAG.
I cannot believe it.
quite frankly.
Okay, we talked about this a little bit on Friday. I'm really curious as to know why things work out the way that they do regarding different shows. Bill Maher said that he was going to come back and start making new episodes of Real Time for HBO, and then the union went after him aggressively, and he relented.
They picked that scab.
Drew Barrymore said that she was going to start making new episodes of her show. They went after her. She backed down.
They picked that scab.
Why is it that The View can continue to make shows when Whoopi Goldberg is a member of the WGA and they have WGA writers on the show on strike, and that's no problem? They receive no blowback at all.
If I had to assume, it's because they, and this is a joke every time you hear it, they consider themselves part of the news department.
And you know why they do that?
Why is that?
Because if they were part of ABC Daytime, they'd have to pay their guests. If you're a guest on The Tonight Show, which is not regarded as being a news show, you get paid to go on. And they have some kind of union scale that you get paid. But if you go on Meet the Press, you don't get paid to go on Meet the Press because that's part of the NBC News division. And news shows don't pay guests to appear. So it's only because they are cheap that they're part of the ABC News division. Now, when you think about that show and you think about the news division, you say to yourself, why would ABC cheapen their brand by having any association with them? They get things wrong all the time. They don't know what they're talking about most of the time.
Sometimes Whoopi does.
Rising crime in California.
Yeah, but she also thought that Jill Biden should be the Surgeon General, and she's a hell of a doctor.
She's such a great doctor.
And then you don't want to even be in the room when she starts opining on the Jews.
Not during the high holidays.
No. She's always getting in trouble for that. But just imagine, since that's part of the ABC News division, if GMA did that one day. They start out the show. You got all the top headlines, and coming up at 15 past the hour, Robin Roberts opines on the Jews. That would never happen. Remember when Rosie O'Donnell was on The View and she was talking about 9/11 being an inside job? A lot of reporting went into that.
That's a hard-hitting news program.
How about when Sherry Shepard was on that show and she was talking about the earth being flat? How many news producers did she have working on that one? So I guess they get a pass. And all of these A-list talent are willing to go on as a guest, too.
Oh, it's so funny. If you can go on, but you can't promote anything that's in TV or film or anything that's written. So you could go on to promote that you're doing some charity work, or you can go on to promote your podcast.
Or your social media or whatever. But it's weird to me that Bill Maher and Drew Barrymore became the devil. And The View they never skip a beat, and they're celebrated.
You know what? You've convinced me. Joy Behar's a scab. Whoopi? Scabola. And I don't know the name of the other three.
Sonny Hostin is the attorney that's always angry.
Scab.
Anna Navarro, I used to work with over at CNN.
Big scab.
And Alyssa Farah has a mother that works in radio in Sacramento.
Scabola. They are not respecting the writers and the actors.
I wonder what would happen if someone challenged them on that on the set during the show. How long would it take for them to cut to a commercial break? Because I'm sure politically they're all pro-union, and they're all pro that union. Whoopi's a member, for heaven's sake.
Whoopi's probably a member of both.
Yeah, you can't be in the movies without being a member of SAG. I don't know if they're AFTRA for the show. I would assume that they probably are.
Oh, I think she might be in the Writers Guild as well.
No, she is. She is in the Writers Guild. So is Drew Barrymore. How the hell is Drew Barrymore in the Writers Guild? What the hell has she ever written? Does she even write her own Christmas cards?